Hey guys, welcome to Fantasy Effect episode 96. We got some coaching changes. We do have our own free Discord. It is going off at all times. Patreon as well. DM us if you guys are interested. It's at Ronald Cavalier, at Jay Lebowski, TRM, at Holler Jono. You're going to have to look at Holler's name on the YouTube video to get all them L's in there. I can't count that high. And also, please like, comment, subscribe. How's it going tonight, guys?
Going, man. The Discord was lively tonight. They were roasting me about my Brock Bowers ranking, which I thought was fair, and apparently is, I wronged people and their families with some of those rankings, but it was fun.
Working on my rankings, and I put them in the right exact same spot as you. So I feel
you ended up the same spot. It's funny.
Yeah, they need to go and edit and put my name in there as well.
Perfect.
Yeah, I can't believe that, McSpanky wound up being, the dude getting all the pitchforks on his boy Brock Bowers,
out there. For Bowers, I know. I thought I had a fair ranking, and then I pulled up, Fantasy Calc, and I was looking. This like, okay, like how far off am I? And apparently he's at, overall 8 right now. So in the first round, which I thought felt a little high, but what do I know? I guess
nothing.
The people love Brock Bowers. Which I do too, for the record. I know he's a 45-year-old man in a 22-year-old's body, but
his hair. He needs to go see
some road gain
or something. Do something, man.
Yeah, he makes me feel good about my hairline, that's for sure.
But I have to say, he kills it on the field, so it's all that matters.
He does.
I think part of it, I guess we can talk about Brock Bowers since I brought it up, but part of it is like he was the only one out there this year. They had no run game. They had Devontae Adams was gone. It was him and Jacoby Myers. I like Jacoby Myers, but Bowers was the only one that really belongs as like a first option on NFL offense that was out there. So
sure.
I do worry about what happens if they say draft, like they're in a position where they could draft maybe like a Ted McMillan at 6 overall. What happens if they sign like a good wide receiver? We've seen some of these tight ends have great seasons and then get drafted really high in Dynasty and then kind of crap the bed the next year or take a step back. Sam Laporta had an awesome first year and then he took a step back. Obviously, I know Bowers had a better season. That's where I went a little bit of just caution.
For me, I just feel like I know we talk about unicorns with running backs and things like that, but to me, he's different. He can play all over the field, and I know they like if we can compare it to like Sam Laporta, that they have so many other weapons in Detroit, and they have nothing in Oakland in Vegas. So even if they were to get one more wide receiver, right, I think he's going to be fine. Like he to me is like the focal point, right? And I think. There's so many rumors we'll talk about in a minute, but there's so many rumors on who they get. So I'm kind of going to wait a little bit and see who they get for their head coach, who they get for the offensive coordinator, and then what they do in the draft is going to be huge. So maybe the Sanders whole family's coming.
God, please don't.
Drew Aller, maybe he.
Just pain for McSpanky. He's got a root against Bo twice a year, and then he has Drew Aller as his quarterback.
Oh, what are they doing to me?
Should we get into this news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I'm gonna run through them, and then we'll kind of. You guys want to go over my favorite them real quick here? Okay. So the Giants have decided they're going to keep both head coach Brian Daboll and GM Joe Schoen. The Jaguars have fired Doug Peterson. The Patriots fired Gerard Mayo. The Raiders have fired Antonio Pierce. The Bengals fired Lou Anarumo. Seahawks fired Ryan Grubb. And Deshaun Watson had a setback in his Achilles. That's kind of a different set of news. But what do you guys think about any of this coaching stuff? Positive for people, negative? What do you think?
I like that the Giants kept Daboll. I think he's a really good coach. He just he got kind of put in a crappy situation with Daniel Jones. I don't think that was on him as much as it was on Joe Schoen, which I'm surprised he's the one that's still there. But I guess if they're just going to give them both probably one more year if it doesn't change. probably clean house. So I thought that was interesting. They kind of get a do-over. They're in a position where they can take another quarterback at the top of the draft or sign someone, maybe handpick one. I thought for sure when Saquon went over 2,000, that was going to be the nail in the coffin, just based on their owner being like, man, I can't sleep at night if Saquon goes for 2,000, especially for like the Eagles.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think the Giants one was interesting. The Jaguars firing Doug Peterson, I think everyone kind of knew that was coming. What was interesting to me is that they kept their GM, Trent Baalke, and I don't understand that one either, because like later they were doing, like the owner was doing like a interview with him, and it was like, well, you know, if we hire a new coach and he doesn't like him, wants to bring someone with him, like we might let him go. And he's like on the call with him, and it's like, what the hell is happening in Jacksonville? Like that's some new levels of dysfunction. But those are the ones that stood out to me. What about you guys?
Yeah, definitely the Jags, like keeping their general manager, and then I think Joe Shane's on strike 2, right? Strike 1 was Daniel Jones. Strike 2 was not keeping Saquon. And to me, I think, Daboll is a really good coach. And so I think if they were to go the route of, let's say, Travis Hunter, and then they go and sign a quarterback, I think Daboll is there. For Wes just asked odds that Daboll stays, past this year. And I think it will just depend on what they do, right? If they go in my opinion, I don't really like these couple quarterbacks in the top of the draft right now. I'm not a huge on Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. Yeah. So, and even so, I like Drew Aller, but even there, like if you really need to turn your team around, like you should not be going after any of those 3 quarterbacks, right? You should be going after, somebody that has been, go get a free agent, right? And so go get that, probably in my opinion, one of the best players in the draft. He can play both ways. Travis Hunter, they use him however they want, but say he's going to be a wide receiver and you put him next to Malik Neighbors, that's a scary 1-2 punch in my opinion. So I think that's, that's where they're at with the Giants. And then I just think whatever his name is, I know last name's Cod, but that owner is like Jerry Jones 2.0, right? That guy's crazy, right? So that one, keeping their GM is crazy to me. And then it wasn't really surprising, but like Gerard Mayo, I just think they didn't give him a fair chance, right? In my opinion. Yeah. So and I saw I think it was on X, I think like they're going after Vrabel, but like in my opinion, Vrabel's been mediocre. Like I think he's a good defensive coordinator. But just like if you look at his numbers and how his teams have been, they've been mediocre, right? And so to go from Mayo to Vrabel, to me, I didn't give him a fair shot.
Okay. I think Ron, you go ahead.
I think Vrabel's actually a really good head coach, and I think he overachieves with mediocre teams. And I think he, got a bit of the shaft because he went from Matt LaFleur to Arthur Smith, and then to no offensive coordinator, and then now we're running you out of town because our current GM doesn't want you. I believe there's like a video of them drafting some player, and like Vrabel is kind of like visibly upset, with the drafting of this player. So I think he kind of got a raw deal at the end of the Tennessee era. I think his team's definitely, over it. I mean, they made the playoffs with Marcus Mariota when he was head coach there. So I think that Vrabel actually is a really good head coach. Now he has to get the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator correct, but I think he's a good leader of the team. And I think, not to bang the Lions drum, but I like the NFL is kind of shifting to that like leader of men kind of deal right now, as opposed to like the hot new OC in DC, because they're seeing what happened in Detroit. So now people want to try to replicate that. And that's how the league is, they want to replicate, what's the new hot thing that's going on. Not saying that anybody is Dan Campbell or anything like that, but I think that Mike Vrabel has is a really good coach, and he, has a proven track record to achieve with, less than talents, especially in Tennessee.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, just if you're looking at his records, 54 and 45. So, I mean, it's okay. And then 2 and 3 in the.
You're muted, Holler.
Yeah, I think your mic cut out. But I mean, Vrabel, I think he did more with less in Tennessee. I think he had a very roster poor, talent there in Tennessee, and he, even that last year, I think before he got fired, it was his team was in contention for the playoffs, right? And I think he was throwing out Malik Willis, and then I forget they signed some dude off the practice squad, and he came in on like a Thursday night game and played fairly well. I can't remember who it was now. So I think he's done a pretty good job with some of the talent. I was kind of hoping the Raiders might hire him, but it sounds like he's going to go to New England. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I think he played there. The Mayo firing, though, was just odd in that it felt like Mayo stayed as a DC under Belichick and kind of a coach under Belichick for a long time. Is like they were kind of like trying to coach him up to be the next head coach or replacement to Belichick, and then to let him go after one season just feels really odd. Like I think he kind of got a raw deal. Antonio Pierce too. I think he got put in a bad spot. I don't think he was quite ready for the head coaching job. I think he's a good defensive mind. I don't think he was ready to lead an entire team and kind of be the guy. He also got put in a crappy spot where it's like they had no plan at quarterback, and then they shipped off their best offensive player in Devontae Adams. So the defense was fine for the most part in Las Vegas this past year. They kind of gave up towards the end because it was like, well, the offense isn't clearly going to do anything, and they're not winning games. So I think those two kind of got put in bad spots where they weren't going to necessarily succeed. But it is what it is.
My biggest shocker was the Seahawks firing Ryan Grubb after 1 year. That was kind of like a hot name when he got in there. I heard some people kind of talk about he wasn't running the ball enough for what Mike Macdonald would prefer, as the defensive coach. The defensive coaches always want you to run the ball and, play the clock game with the other teams and everything like that. And, maybe that's what it was. That Washington offense was heavy shotgun and heavy throw, and that's definitely not running any clock. So I didn't get to watch a lot of Seahawks games. I was just kind of surprised because I thought the offense was generally fine. I know DK had a down year. JSN kind of exploded. Kenneth Walker seemed to be fine when he was on the field, and Tyler Lockett's going to retire. So
that was
the Seahawks won 10 games. Like, it wasn't like the offense was horrendous, right? And I think I was kind of looking at some of their stats. They were kind of middle of the pack in terms of like points scored and like yardage and that sort of thing. But like they were generally fairly good. Like they had some really bad games throughout the year. But I mean, so does a lot of teams. And it was his first year as a play caller in the NFL. I think he was kind of growing into that. I don't think he did like poor enough to deserve fired. The only thing I can think of is that maybe he just wasn't like a cultural fit in Seattle. I don't know if maybe he just wanted to go a different direction. And like you said, they have a defensive minded head coach there. Maybe they prefer someone who's a little bit more just like, hey, let's just run the ball with Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. I don't know, man. That felt odd to me. It took me by surprise for sure.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised.
You can hear me, right?
Yep, we're good.
We're having technical difficulties over here, but that was what I was going to get to as well. That was my biggest surprise there out of all of them. Like, I felt like Ryan Grubb is a good offensive coordinator. So I'm hearing he might go back and go with DeBoer from Alabama. But I just think to me that was the surprise. I felt like they used JSN, like you guys said, a lot better. DK was fine, I know. And to me, like, it's not his fault that Kenneth Walker got injured. So I mean, that was the biggest issue in my opinion. So that was a surprise with me. So, but yeah, I mean, I would say, I don't know if we already touched on it, but I think some of the biggest, like for the head coaching openings, like the best one is, in my opinion, is probably the Jaguars. To me, I feel like they have the best. That's what I mean. It's a hard, like they're all kind of meh. You know what I mean? I know the Bears probably have some of the best players per se, but I think it's probably up there, Jaguars and Bears. What do you guys think?
So the Jaguars situation, because when I look at a head coach like opening, if I was a head coach, I would want to look at, okay, who's their quarterback? So obviously the Jaguars, they have Trevor Lawrence. I think that's nice. The Patriots, Drake May, and then the Bears, Caleb Williams. I think those are probably the top three, just because you can talk yourself into, like, hey, I think we have a franchise quarterback here, or someone who we believe might be the franchise quarterback. The Raiders, I mean, they don't have one. Yes. They have Aiden O'Connell. They're picking 6. They might be able to draft one. The Jets, I mean, Aaron Rodgers at the tail end of his career. I think Tyrod Taylor is under contract next year, but that's about it. And then the Saints, Derek Carr, we know who Derek Carr is, right? So the only thing that gives me hesitancy on Jacksonville is that their GM has just not done well. He's not drafted well. That's a weird situation. There seems like a weird dynamic between him and their owner. That's the one that it's like the roster probably looks great because you can talk yourself into Etienne and Brian Thomas and Trevor Lawrence. My God, I can't get their names. They're all mixed together. There's a lot of offensive talent there. Yeah. They have what's his face, Trayvon Walker, who was like their first. Well, I was going defense. Yes, they have a decent roster, and the AFC South isn't like overly scary, so I can definitely see why that would be beneficial there. But I think if I had to pick one, I would say probably Chicago is probably one of the best spots just because they have a lot. They already have a good defense. If you believe in Caleb Williams and can get something out of him functionally there, like really you're an offensive line away from being a pretty functional offense, and the defense is already pretty solid. So I think that's one that I think you could go in and pretty much win right away. I would assume.
And to me, I think they have a solid GM. I know they've it's still kind of up in there, but to me, I think he's a solid GM, right? It's a polar opposite with the Jags. So I think both of them, they probably out of the group have the best total package of their players in their roster. But to me also, I think the Saints could be good. Obviously they need a quarterback. Derek Carr's not it. But I know their defense is really good, right? So I think that, and they have some solid players as well. So those would be the Bears, Jaguars, and Saints would be my top three. But also like the Patriots is there too. Just their defense is always good. They have Drake May. They need wide receivers. And then they're, Ramondre is Ramondre. So whatever you think of that. But, I think all these they all have solid pieces. Like even the Jets, even the Raiders both have solid pieces as well. So I think if the right person can get in there, and then, obviously the Raiders need some help and the Jets both need some help, but they all have solid pieces on their teams, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm taking the Patriots as the best. It might be a little bit of past, success for the Patriots. Robert Kraft was around for the entire Brady succession. Like he knows what successful stuff looks like. So I think that he's going to know when he has a guy in there. And I think that's why, Gerard Mayo gets fired so quickly. He can see that like, hey man, writing's on the wall. This just not, he may not be ready. He may need more time. Obviously there's stuff behind closed doors. You get Drake May, you get an early draft pick. You get the most cap room in the NFL at this moment in time. And it sounds like the Patriots are also willing to let Elliott Wolf take a step back and have the head coach come in with the GM that he prefers to work with as of right now. And I think that's, a huge thing that none of these other teams are offering except maybe the Jets because they let their GM go as well.
Yeah,
right. You can't change the freaking GM there.
So now that you put it that way, like I kind of agree more, but especially if Vrabel comes in, and you be a good leader, get a good offensive coordinator, get a good defensive coordinator, and then they get some free agents, like then that team could be kind of scary, right? So they're picking out of I think it's the 4th or 5th pick they have, and if they maybe get Ted McMillan, Drake May, Ted McMillan, and they get a few other free agents, I think they got something going there.
Yeah. I mean, Drake May is throwing to basically me at wide receiver at this point, in time, and he was pretty successful doing it, Imagine if he has just one talented guy out. How many touchdowns did I have? And -2.
Oh, wow.
But he gets one good guy out there, playing wide receiver for him. And imagine what that could do, for him and, New England. And just like I said, just the history of success, they kind of know what they're looking for to be a successful franchise. I think that's something that these other teams don't generally have.
I do think they need some help at GM though, because, they kind of botched a few picks last year with Polk and I don't know if Javon.
They haven't drafted well for a long time.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I think they do need some help at the GM, but but per se, whoever they get at head coach and that head coach and the GM come in together, I think things could turn around pretty quickly. I think having a really, really good owner is huge. And then we have the polar opposite in Jacksonville with that owner being kind of like a Jerry Jones. So, so I kind of like that pick as well.
Yeah.
I was just looking through a list of like all the there's a kind of a comprehensive list of all the teams that have requested interviews with people. I was going through and kind of looking. It looks like Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn. Sorry, Ron. I think you might lose both of them. They're on like every single team here. Okay. And then but looking at the list of like the Bears and the Jets are just so unimpressive. They're looking at guys like Arthur Smith and just trying to like rehash some of these guys who just haven't done well. And like the Bears requested Mike McCarthy, which was interesting. I think they thought the Cowboys were going to fire him, which doesn't sound like they're going to now too. And it's like that's a weird one because he hasn't exactly done great in Dallas or done anything, and it's like, what are you hoping to get there? Some of these just doesn't make sense. Like, what are they doing? And like Ron Rivera and like the Jets try to get they interviewed Rex Ryan and like Brian Greasy and like some of these like TV analysts and like, what the heck is happening? Like, what? Which kind of leads me into my point of it's like a Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. I am so scared to hold either of those assets right now in Dynasty because it's been a shit show, for lack of a better term, over the last few years, and it doesn't seem like it's going to get any better with some of the coaches that they've interviewed for, and if they can't figure out a quarterback, it's like, okay, how is this going to be? Like, they're young enough where it's like, okay, and they're obviously talented enough, so they're ranked pretty high, but like, what's your degree of confidence in either one of those guys, like putting up a top 12 season and with their respective positions?
Yeah. So I'm working on my rankings and totally changing everything. And I, when I, went back and looked again, like I have Garrett Wilson all the way up at wide receiver 8. And I'm like, that seems high, right? I don't feel comfortable with that, but I also like don't know how much lower I can put him, right? And so there's a couple guys there that are right below him that I think I could put above him. But if they get a solid quarterback, right, and it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, and for some reason Aaron Rodgers, doesn't like to throw to Garrett Wilson. It doesn't make any sense to me. But for me, I feel a little more comfortable with Garrett Wilson than I do Breece Hall, unless they get in a good offensive coordinator that likes to run the ball. But yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'm pretty bullish on both of those guys. If I have them, I'll keep them. I don't want to lose out on or sell them for cheap. But like we're in a startup right now, and I'm kind of shying away from both those guys.
Yeah, I don't think Breece Hall is gone yet. I think we're almost
he's not
round, so.
Still available,
and it's a three running back, start 3 running back. So it's it's
savage.
Obviously an early startup, but I just think there's a lot of question marks with the Jets still, and we saw, obviously it's going to be different head coach, different offensive coordinator. If Aaron Rodgers isn't there, it'll be totally different. But I'm still a little bit, like I said, bullish on both those guys.
Yeah, definitely. You guys want to pop down the NFL prospective free agents here?
Yeah, we if we can. I want to touch on real quick too on some of the Bears players that we have here too, like DJ Moore and Caleb Williams and Odunze. Do you guys think what are we doing with those guys? Because I know like Caleb Williams. So like for Holler, you mentioned it too. We did that startup that's ongoing. He went in the first round still, which I thought was a little surprising. I'm curious, like, do we think he's going to be able to recover next year and kind of take a step forward, or are you guys where are you guys at with Caleb? And I know Ron, you're a Lions fan, so you might have a slightly skewed perspective of him.
Yeah, you want to go first, Ron?
So in the 2 games I got to watch of us playing Caleb, like there's still like the wow factor of the arm, and you can see why people would want to take this dude as the 101, and the talent is there. I got a lot of questions about the mental side for Caleb. There's a lot of photos of him just on the bench, just looking disinterested, like laying down. I know this stuff is the end all be all, but it's just kind of odd behavior that you don't see a lot, especially somebody at the quarterback position. I know we have George Pickens out there making a fool every single week, but there's not a lot of George Pickenses out there either, But a lot of the stuff that I didn't like from Caleb's game in college was a lot of the playground ball, and we kind of thought that was more on the USC offensive line and him constantly being under pressure and having to get away from said pressure, himself. So that just kind of became the way he plays. Well, it followed him to the NFL. There's a lot of running around where like he should just be getting rid of the ball and taking that check down, and he's not, making those correct choices. If he could do those things, he could be a really good quarterback. And then I'd really hate to have Caleb in the division. But as for right now, you can just keep, screwing off and doing whatever the hell you're doing. That's fine. But I am just, I don't want to say optimistic on Caleb. I don't have a lot, but I want to see who that offensive coordinator is. Do we get him a good offensive mind in there, or do we just retread another defensive guy in Chicago and, just kind of let the offense figure it out on their own?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to say. If they were to get Ben Johnson, holy moly, I think Caleb has a ton of, he's got the talent and everything. And I think when he was coming in last year with the draft process and everything, he kind of was talking about how one of his favorite quarterbacks is Aaron Rodgers. And for me, that just kind of him laying on the bench and doing the being kind of like a prima donna makes sense in my opinion. If you're going to kind of emulate yourself after Aaron Rodgers, that those things are 2 and 2 together, But I think if they were to get a really good offensive mind in there, and he needs some, I think he needs, if they could get maybe a better backup that could help him and teach him a little bit more. I don't know how teachable he is, considering he was at USC and not necessarily at USC, but he was with Lincoln Riley, and he had been with him for all of his years, right? And Lincoln Riley is supposed to be the QB whisperer, right? But I just, I don't know how much growing he's done, and I don't know how much he's been getting better each year. And so that's the big thing for me is I want to see him get better. I want to see him progress. He had some solid games, but at the end of the season. But for me, I have him down at QB 13. And I just have some guys that I like more, right? And I feel more confident with. Even Bo Nix and Drake May are right there with him, right? I have Drake May right below Caleb Williams, but I have no problem with anybody taking Drake May over Caleb Williams. So I think the biggest thing though is if they can get an offensive mind in there, and he has good wide receivers. They probably need another tight end. I don't think Cole Kmet is it. But he's got the pieces there. So I think he could have done better this year. Obviously that head coach, he wasn't it as well. And so, I'm not totally out on Caleb, but I just am waiting to see on, what happens with the head coaching opening and the offensive coordinator.
That's fair. I don't think Kmet was a problem necessarily. I think the offense was just so dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And to be fair, their offensive line was horrendous.
Terrible.
And I think that, and I saw it in the comments from Wes, but I think that led to some of Caleb's running around. I do think Caleb does get happy feet in the pocket, and he looks to get outside when he doesn't necessarily have to, or sometimes, maybe he could step up and just chuck it real quick, and he tries to just, make a huge play instead of just playing within structure. I think that's where he needs like a better coach to kind of get him out of some of those habits. Because I think Lincoln Riley kind of encourages that sort of thing in his offense, where it's just like, hey man, just like hang on and make a play. Whereas like in the NFL, it's like you need someone to just kind of like, hey, like play within your structure, play within the offense. If the play's not there, just throw it away or whatever. Don't run around for 20 minutes and take a sack, which did happen. Or throw it up a 50-50 ball. That's really probably more of like a 30-70 ball, trying to play superhero ball. So I think that's what I'm interested in watching too, because I think that the roster's pretty good in Chicago.
Yep. I agree. Like I still think Rome is solid. Like I don't know if they'll keep Keenan Allen around, and if they don't, I think Rome takes a step forward. DJ Moore is still DJ Moore. And so I know it probably wasn't Komet's issue, but there's just too many zeros for my liking,
It wasn't pretty.
Yeah,
It was not pretty.
I think that's kind of where I was going with it. But I think overall he's a solid tight end, so I think it's fine there. And so, but yeah, like you had a list of players here, and I think that group of players is probably the biggest one that will be impacted by a coaching change.
Yeah. Definitely agree. Okay, so for the quarterbacks heading to free agency, we have Sam Darnold, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Kirk Cousins.
With an asterisk.
With an asterisk.
Cousins isn't technically a free agent, but I'm pretty sure he's getting released.
Yeah, they said they're cutting him, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's like a for sure thing, but I don't think
you can go back at this point. Yeah. So teams with quarterback needs, we have the Raiders, Giants, Browns, Titans, Steelers, and Vikings. I feel like you put an asterisk next to that Vikings as well, because they got your guys' boy JJ McCarthy for needs. As long as they're comfy with him, they could roll into the season with him. Where do you think these guys land?
Yeah, I think the Titans are going to draft Cam Ward at 1. That seems to be the rumor. I think the Giants are going to draft Shadur Sanders, and so then it kind of leaves Raiders, Browns, Steelers, Vikings. I think the Steelers are going to re-sign Russell Wilson, and then it just is like, okay, so then we're looking at the Raiders, Browns, and Vikings probably stay with JJ McCarthy and Sam Darnold. Where does he end up, right? Maybe he stays in Minnesota and they try to trade JJ McCarthy to one of these other teams. I saw a rumor that they were talking about possibly trying to trade him out for like a high pick, and then maybe they'll re-sign Darnold and take one of these high pick to help with the team. I don't know. Justin Fields, I think he's more of a priority backup than he is a starter in the league at this point. And honestly, Darnold is. We talked about this a little bit last time, but he worries me a little bit if he goes somewhere that doesn't have a top 10 offensive line. I mean, we saw what he did in that Lions game on Sunday night last week. Which first of all, that was a banged up Detroit Lions defense. They got all kinds of pressure, and Darnold was like, I saw quite a few clips of like guys running open. Like I think in the red zone there was a spot where like Addison had a wide open touchdown, and Darnold just didn't see it because he was just so frazzled by all the pressure that had been coming at him all night. And he just wasn't seeing the field, right? And so that scares me. If I'm a prospective team, like if I'm a Raiders fan, which I am, knowing how our offensive line performs, I don't feel cozy paying him $40 million to come play behind that line. I don't need Derek Carr 2.0, which I think there's a lot of similarities between the two of those, but that's the one that scares me a little bit. And then I think the Browns are a wild card because I think they pick at 3 or 4. And if they draft a quarterback, just
2,
given that they're at 2.
Yeah, Browns are at 2. Yeah, I just pulled up Tankathon.
Oh, that's right, because the New England winning and stuff. Okay, so with Watson having a setback in his Achilles injury, they're kind of a wild card in that they might take a quarterback. And let's say Tennessee decides that they're going to take maybe like a Travis Hunter or just someone else, not a quarterback. Like, could they be a landing spot for Cam Ward? I think it's possible, right?
Yep.
What are you guys thinking?
Yeah. So I'm kind of all over the place a little bit still. I think obviously a lot of pieces still need to fall. I think the biggest one being Sam Darnold, and I really hope the Rams win on Monday night. But I could see it going either way. And to me, the Vikings saw it last week. I know the Lions are one of the best teams in the NFL, but their defense is really banged up. And so for me, you saw what Sam Darnold is when you get any kind of pressure. I think the same thing is going to happen this week against the Rams, since their front is so good. So I think the same thing could happen this week coming up. And so we've seen it. It's going to be 2 weeks in a row. It's going to be fresh in their mind, and I think they move on from Sam Darnold. Unless, like I've said, I'm going to stick to it. If Sam Darnold's win the Super Bowl, they're going to re-sign him, and it'll be all good, and they'll try to trade JJ McCarthy. But for me, I'm with you, Spanky. If Sam Darnold goes somewhere else and they don't have a really good offensive line, that's rough. I think New York could be an option if he does move on. I'm just going to be, I know they need offensive or they need line help. But with the Giants being at 3 there, they have some other really good pieces. And I think they also need, it's more of like I know Dable wants to turn it around really quickly or whatever, but I think it's going to be more of a longer kind of rebuild than anything. So at 3 there, I think you kind of should just take the best player. And I think if he's going to be there, they shouldn't pass on Travis Hunter. I don't like I said earlier, I don't think Shedeur is it. I think he's got some question marks, so. And then I think my opinion, I think Cleveland, they might just roll with Deshaun Watson. And I don't know if what's his name? Jameis Winston's still under contract. If he's not, I think they just re-sign him. He was good enough, so I think maybe they roll there and they maybe go defense, especially if Myles Garrett asks for a trade. So I think that could happen there. And then I'm with you with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. I think Russell Wilson goes back to the Pittsburgh, and then Justin Fields is definitely a backup. I can see him maybe going to. I know it's kind of different now that Tennessee got the 101. I thought Justin Fields maybe could go to Tennessee if they had like the 3, 4, 5 as a possible option, but I don't think so now. And then the other one would be like Kirk. Yeah, Vegas is a possibility. And so that's one guy that kind of comes to mind as possibly is Kirk Cousins. If, say, they were to get an older coach there in Vegas, Pete Carroll's been kind of some rumors there. So, something like that. And then they go out and get a Kirk Cousins. That's a possibility, or Justin Fields. But for me, with these quarterbacks, there's still a lot of dominoes to fall. And I think the one that is kind of the main – it'll be Russell Wilson going back to Pittsburgh. That's the main one I feel really pretty comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Russ goes back to the Steelers. I think Fields is either going to sign with the Giants or the Raiders, because there's an opening, not good offensive lines. His mobility will, kind of mitigate those issues for them for at least the stopgap era of when he plays, gives him an opportunity to start again. I think Kirk Cousins is actually going to go to the Browns and reunite with Kevin Stefanski. Familiarity with the offense and everything like that. I don't know if, being the churchgoer that Kirk Cousins is, if he's going to step into a room with Deshaun Watson or not, but we'll see. There's definitely connections and ties. And I think the Vikings will re-sign Darnold. They may have to franchise tag him to do it, but I think they'll just want to make sure that McCarthy is healthy and ready to roll. And if he's not, they have Sam Darnold sitting there, waiting so they can keep the season on track. I think it's a bit of smoke coming out that the Vikings are looking to move off of McCarthy. Totally. Just because of the things you guys brought up about Darnold in that, the big moment, like you don't want you want your quarterback to be able to perform at those points in time, and, they got to beat up on some teams, and he's looked really good, and he's looked the best that Sam Darnold has ever looked.
Yep.
But I don't think Sam Darnold is a franchise quarterback. I think he's definitely a nice stopgap, and he has probably overperformed what he would do anywhere else being the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, he has Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and Aaron Jones to throw the ball to. Put him on the Titans this year, throwing to Calvin Ridley. Let's see what happens there to Sam Darnold.
Gross.
I'm curious what you guys think of Kirk Cousins right now, and if you think he realistically starts next year. And the reason part of that for asking is I actually traded him just the other day. I traded him and Isaiah Pacheco for the 111, I think it was.
Yeah.
So part of my thinking there is, one, I think Pacheco, I've never been a huge Pacheco fan. I think it's very, very easily could get replaced. And also, I'm not sold that there's a spot for Kirk Cousins to be a starter in the league next year. I could see him going as like a nice, maybe to one of these places that maybe drafts a rookie or maybe has a rookie this year who didn't perform, maybe in a Chicago. Maybe he can go there and kind of help Caleb Williams pull his head out of his ass and play an offense. I don't know. I'm a little bit nervous about Kirk Cousins, and I've been willing to ship him off for probably less than market value, just because I'm not sold that he starts next year or that he starts and finishes all of next season.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
You know, I think that would be, to me, he seems more like a backup now. I think maybe this year he wasn't fully healthy, obviously. You know, so I think that was part of it. But he had great weapons, so I don't know how, you know,
Right.
how it could be so bad. So for me, I think it all depend on kind of obviously, you know, where he goes. But to me, I think like in terms of fantasy, like, you know, I think that was, if you can get out for whatever, like do it. I feel like that was a solid 111 for both those guys is solid, right? You know, because we never know what's going to happen with Pacheco. I think we talked about it last week. Is like, for me, you know, they could sign anybody, and they used Kareem Hunt, and Pacheco came back and he kind of was not much at all. You know, so he scares me there. And you know, so I just think, to me, Kirk Cousins looks more like a backup than anything these days. I think he could get some starts, especially if he goes to a team that needs a quarterback. But if, you know, all the line, like, you know, all the dominoes fall and he ends up, you know, I think a really good spot for him and Caleb would be to go to Chicago and be a backup and help him.
Yeah. I think Kirk will get a job and he'll get a starting role to at least start the season. He may or may not finish the season. I think, you know, I think health had a lot to do with what was going on with Kirk Cousins this year. You know, you get him another year removed. He's even come out and said that he wasn't as confident in himself, you know, playing the quarterback position. So, well, you know, we'll get to see where that goes. But I think he at least starts the season as a starter somewhere, whether it be in front of one of those rookies in Shador, Cam Ward, or for the I mean, he could go to the Raiders and start too.
Yeah, you know,
don't do that to me.
I'm just saying.
There's a lot of, you know,
are him and Tom buddies?
I hope not. I hope they hate each other.
Okay. You guys want to hop into the running backs?
Yeah, let's do it.
The gross class, free agency class of running backs.
Yeah, it's a great class.
We got Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, Javonte Williams, J.K. Dobbins, Rico Dowdle, Jalen Warren, and Jordan Mason. I'm just going to say Jordan Mason resigns with the 49ers right now. Jalen Warren is probably a Steeler as well. Rico Dowdle is still in Dallas. I don't think Rico Dowdle is anything to worry about, even if he were to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
Dobbins is going to stay a Charger because they believed in him throughout the injuries. And they'll probably draft some offensive or defensive linemen if I had to bet. Just knowing
Harbaugh way.
Yeah. Javonte, right? Javonte is the one that's going to leave Denver. I think they drafted the replacement in Audric Estime. I know it hasn't been spectacular or anything along those lines, but I think that Javonte leaves Denver. You know how Sean is.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah. Javonte might be dead. Like, do you think he goes somewhere? Like, I don't think he starts. I don't even know if he's necessarily the 2 somewhere.
You don't think he could? Okay, I'm not trying to do this to insult on the Raiders, but you don't think he could start in that Raiders backfield right now? It's just the first running back.
So
backfield.
That's fair. It's fair. The Raiders backfield was I mean, we were rolling out Amir Abdul and friggin'
right.
Yeah, I also feel like
God knows who, but okay, but like think of it this way: Javonte was pretty bad, and it wasn't like Audric Estime was setting the world on fire. But man, I don't know, like Javonte, I just don't think. And there's so many rookies, like there's so many running backs coming out that it's like, why pay Javonte $4, $5, $6 million to come in on like a 1-2 year deal when you can just grab like a Caleb Johnson in the 3rd round, or you could get a Cam Scattaboo in the 3rd or 4th, or like, get a really cheap guy. Like that's where I'm at, where it's like, I don't know, like, is he talented enough to be the 2 on an NFL roster? Yeah, but like, does it make financial sense for teams to do it? That's where I'm like, I don't know, right?
Yep.
Fair.
100% agree. Like, if you think of we put on here for running back needs: Browns, Cowboys, Raiders, Broncos, Chargers, Vikings, Giants, and Steelers. Like, if you think about it, I don't think any of those teams will go out and pay for him, right? I think they all would rather draft a running back or re-sign the guy that was on their team. You know what I mean? So I think he's the odd man out, and I could see him, going all the way to the like all going all the way through the offseason and not being signed. So it could be the beginning of spring or not spring training.
Training
training camp. Thank you.
Yeah.
So for me, out of all that group, the group is I think Javonte Williams is kind of the odd man out. And then I think I don't love Najee, but I think he's an interesting one that I think he's still a solid running
I'm
back.
just gonna pay him.
Yeah, right. I still think he's solid, and I think he's better than some of the running backs that are coming in. Even though this class is really deep, and I like a lot of the running backs coming in, but I still think he's better than a lot of them coming in. So, and then Aaron Jones, I think is old, but I think he's kind of he could end up. Exactly. He's played really well, and I think he can end up coming back with the Vikings for cheap.
He's tired, that's for sure. He did not look okay on Sunday night. There was like a point in time like where Akers spelled him and he came back in and like ran one and he was just like laying on the ground after taking a hit.
He looked rough.
Like, I don't think Aaron is okay right now. Like
he needs to be a 1B for sure. Like they've been using him as like a workhorse, and it might this might be all of the tread left in the tires, and this just might be what sends him out to pasture after the season. Which is unfortunate. He's so awesome.
I don't think any team is really going after and be like, I'm going to go grab one of these free agents, right? I think they're more going to probably put their eggs in the draft.
Cowboys. Jerry Jones loves old running backs.
Yeah, so
they might sign Aaron Jones.
Yeah,
they might sign Devontae too. They
might
grab them both and
bring back Rico.
Yeah, three-headed monster.
I don't know. It's too expensive to bring a running back in like that because they wouldn't pay for Derrick Henry, would they?
That looks silly right now.
No, they did not.
Yes, it does. Should we hop into the wide receivers real quick?
Let's do it.
Okay. So we got T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs, Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins, Brandon Cooks, Hollywood Brown, Elijah Moore, Josh Palmer.
In retrospect, I shouldn't have put Palmer on that list. It sounded silly after some of those names. He is a free agent.
Yeah. I think for me, the two big ones out of this group, T and Chris Godwin. Those are the two big ones for me. There's so many rumors swirling around where T. Higgins could go.
Staying right in Cincinnati.
Yeah. Well,
I think so.
I think
Bishop sailed.
Yeah,
I think Joe wants him. Joe's come out.
I'm sure Joe does, but I don't think they're going to pay enough money for him.
They don't have T. Higgins money, so Andre Yoshibasa it is champ. Like I don't know.
I did see. I don't know where I saw, but then they draft Luther Burden. I think that would be pretty nice. Opposite of
Luther is
Jamar. Yeah. So I think that'll be pretty nice. That's kind of a spot I think Luther Burden needs to go. But on the free agents, I think T. Higgins, obviously one of the landing spots I'm hoping, be the Chargers. I think that would be awesome. But I don't think it's going to happen. That's just not how Harbaugh does it. So I think, but outside of those two guys, all the other guys are kind of, to me, washed up and old. What about you guys?
How dare you? I kind of think Carolina's going to send a shit ton of money and sign T. Higgins. I kind of feel like that's where he's going to go.
The one thing there, though,
I love it, but I also like Bryce Young, so it is what it is.
The one strong enough for that for T. Higgins ball.
What's that?
Is his arm strong enough for T. Higgins ball?
Oh yeah, it's plenty strong enough for T. Higgins.
Right. The one thing I would say though is if Tet slides a little bit, I think Carolina's another spot for McMillan, which would be nice as well. But I don't think he will get past like New England or maybe even Vegas. So, but like the Jets don't need a wide receiver. Jacksonville doesn't really need a wide receiver.
I think the Jets could use another receiver.
The Jets could because it's really
all of Aaron Rodgers' buddies. And
that's true.
They're all gone. He went Aaron.
That's true. So I don't actually looking at. I don't think he will land. Like will last till number 8. But that's a possibility. But I do like that spot as well for T. Higgins.
Yeah.
I think. What about Deontay Johnson? I think that's the interesting one.
Head case. I don't want anything to do with him.
I'm aware that he's a head case, but so are a lot of good talented receivers
of
that score fantasy points. So it's like,
listen, Antonio Brown was very good at football, and it's okay to be a head case when you're that good at football. So is Terrell Owens. But if you want to pull this kind of stuff and you're not going to walk out on the field and be Antonio Brown or Terrell Owens, get the hell off my team, man.
Yeah.
So I get that, but I feel like someone's going to pay him to come in. I don't know if he's.
What did
The talent just doesn't just go away.
A 6th-round pick?
I understand that.
I'm gonna tag that one there because I like it too, Wes.
I like that too.
Get rid of Diggs and keep Deontay. I feel like
Yeah.
that head coach could kind of keep his craziness under wraps a little bit. Although I don't know if Mike Tomlin can't even keep like a George Pickens under wraps. I don't know if anybody can keep him or Deontay Johnson under wraps. So, but yeah, I think that's a nice spot for him and CJ Stroud and Nico and Tank. Even though I think Tank Dell is going to be out most of the year next year. So but yeah, Wes, I like that spot a lot. And then I said all these guys are old, but Keenan Allen can still do it pretty well.
Hopkins, great.
Yeah, Hopkins is all right, and then same with Amari Cooper, he can still do it as well. So I think it just depends on where those guys land. But to me, they're all going to get cheap, hopefully cheap contracts, and they just need to be on the right spot. I think for them to be fantasy relevant.
Do you think Chris Godwin resigns in Tampa Bay? Because I think that's kind of where I see it.
Yeah.
I think him and Baker have a good, rapport, and I think he's been there his whole career. Like, I think he could just resign maybe a 2-3 year deal, just end, right off into the sunset in Tampa.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, I'm a little bullish and kind of hope he goes somewhere else just because I want to see more of Jalen McMillan because he's played really, really well.
McMillan's been great. He was awesome the last couple weeks.
Super, super good. But if he does come back, I think that offense is going to be super good for Baker. And, that offense is good. It'll depend on what happens with Liam Cohen. I don't know if he's going to go and get one of those head coaching gigs. There's only quite a few. That's what I was just going to say. I don't think so. But yeah, I think that's the best spot for Chris Godwin, for him, for fantasy, for everything.
Yeah. Do you guys think Hollywood Brown has anything left in the tank? He was on a 1-year deal. I know he got hurt.
We'll see. We'll see in the playoffs, right?
We'll see the playoff run, but
But I don't think so. I think to me, I loop him in the same as like Brandon Cooks. Those two guys to me are kind of like I'm not going to ever put him in my lineup. I know there's probably a little bit more weight to Hollywood Brown than there is to Brandon Cooks, but I just think it's kind of the same, like wide receiver,
best ball,
on a team. Yeah, exactly.
Stay in Kansas City. That's
right.
That's the best for you, is to stay in Kansas City.
Is it though? If Rashee Rice is back and then Xavier Worthy's there, and then if Kelsey, maybe Kelsey retires, I don't know, but
for him, I think it is the best thing.
You have Reed, and you have Patrick Mahomes, and it's a whole. He gets to he sat back and learned the system for the entire year. What I've heard is with Hollywood coming back is Hollywood gets to do the wide receiver stuff, and now we're seeing Xavier Worthy pop because he gets to go do all the gadgety stuff. So maybe Xavier Worthy isn't quite fully, to the point they want Xavier Worthy yet, and another year of Hollywood Brown, or even another half a year of Hollywood Brown.
I can see that.
Yep.
I don't really believe in Xavier Worthy to begin with, so there's that.
Yeah.
How could you?
I think he's all right.
He's a Chief, and
Yeah,
I didn't like him before that. To be fair,
so yeah, I like him a lot coming out. And just for me, there's just not too many zeros in my opinion throughout the year. Like I think he's the definition of boomer bust. Solid guy on a best ball, but he's not somebody you feel confident in putting in your lineup in a week in, week out.
Yeah. Sorry, I was gonna look up what he's been doing.
He's not been doing much. I'll tell you that.
No. Well, through week 15 through 17, he was crossing 13 points.
Does it sound like you're writing on a typewriter right now, Ron?
I'm not. It's not me. It's got to be
Holly. Oh, okay. It sounded like someone had a typewriter out there. I was just waiting for the little.
I do.
I can't type and talk. Come on.
That's what I'm working with. I'm working on my typewriter, guys.
Real quick.
Okay, so tight end. Real fast. Sorry. Zach Ertz and Mike Gesicki. are the tight ends of note. And Zach
That was
Ertz
a
was a
great tight end
relevant
class.
fantasy tight end this year. I just wanted
He
to
was.
announce that.
He was indeed.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels
Yeah.
loved him, man. He was
Yeah.
maybe that was more of a Kingsbury thing. Just getting just those short little dub offs, the Zach Ertz. And he
Savvy
just kinda fell
vet,
down.
man. That's a
It,
savvy
like,
vet
just-
thing.
It had, callbacks to Jason Witten, into the career of Jason Witten, where it's just like he finds a soft spot in the zone, catches, and
Yep.
just kind of falls down, right? Like, it was the same kind of thing, but hey, points count. Just the same.
Yeah.
Sure does. Yep.
Exactly.
Do you think he's done, or do you think he comes back one more year in Washington? I think if anyone's going to re-sign him, it's going to be Washington.
That's what I was gonna say.
Or he
He'd
retires.
be-
But
He'd be the only one like that comes back, or Sky. That'd be like the only team that like gets him, in my opinion. So if not, I don't think he goes anywhere, and I think unfortunately he's done. But he was really solid this year. Jaden Daniels really, knew how to get him the ball, and which was good to see. So I'm still kind of up in the air. I don't know for sure if he can still keep it going. But we'll see. Not really it's not really like I think a team's going to go out and try to get him, right? I think it'd be Washington or nothing.
that's how I'm at. I think Cincinnati's going to try to re-sign Kasicki, especially since Eric All re-hurt his knee. Yeah, I think that kind of set it back, and I think Gesicki could probably sign for fairly cheap to stay in Cincinnati.
Yeah, definitely. I could see Ertz going to the Broncos.
Just for Sean Payton?
Yeah, just because Sean Payton's he can find a use for a guy. He had the years with Jimmy Graham. Obviously it's pretty stark difference between late stage career Zach Ertz and Jimmy Graham, but
true.
They don't. Adam Troutman is their tight end one right now. And if they don't find a tight end in the draft,
I think they have to draft one. I really think I would love. Not being a Raiders fan, I wouldn't love this, but just like a fantasy, I think, and a fan of Bo Nix, Tyler Warren, in Denver would be just.
Yeah, he's very useful
next year.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Use him a lot of different ways. That's for sure. That is for sure. Do you guys want to get into the draft, or should we save the draft for another day?
Let's save the draft for another day, and maybe we can get into some prospect previews here.
Yeah. I've been watching film. I've been trying to get to it. The kids are really slowing the process down, but we're getting there. I
dominated the TV with Bluey instead of your film. Yeah.
It's a bit ridiculous. Nobody wants to watch all 22 film in silence with me, so I don't understand.
What the heck? What's wrong with you?
How could they?
Our generation's kids, man.
Yeah, I know, man. Just screwed. I threw on some Luther Burden. I've watched some Travion Henderson. I watched Genty already. I watched Quinton Judkins. Lost the notes to that one. I think that was a big ordeal.
I remember that. Remember you're freaking out.
Dude, I was not happy. I looked for those notes for like a week and a half because I watched 3 freaking games and they were like a half hour a pop for Quinton Judkins.
Real quick, what did you think of Luther Burden? Just while we're
I'm one game in. I just watched the Texas A&M game. I think that he has some awesome body control on the back shoulder throws.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that like immediately pops right off the screen like the very first play. And he took a shot in the ribs from a safety that had him dead to rights on a freaking back shoulder. I shared the clip with you guys. Yeah. And like the safety bounces off this dude. And I mean, like Burden is on one leg at this point, catching a back shoulder ball. Like, I don't know how he took that. And he took that and he is freaking standing over top of the DB flexing after he takes that shot. Like the shot didn't affect him at all. That dude is strong.
Strong guy.
Man. It just means more.
I think he could have been
tune out, Rem Dog.
I feel like
just blocked us. He lost him.
Him and Tet did not have a quarterback at all. And I know Luther took a lot more than Tet did. But Luther Burden's in the SEC, so they struggled obviously because that team overall, but that quarterback sucked. And I'm not a big fan of the Arizona quarterback either, so he sucks as well. But both of them are still they all suck.
You're not Drew.
For some reason the really good wide receivers end up like on a with a crappy quarterback outside of LSU, but
why you go to LSU or Ohio State?
Yeah, right. But yeah, I like Luther Burden a lot, but like I said earlier, I think he needs to land on a team with a good quarterback, because as you can see with Missouri, he kind of disappeared a little bit without a quarterback.
Yeah,
their quarterback play was horrendous this year. Just watch.
But for me, I think some people are going to overdraft running backs, and then you're going to get him in maybe the later spots in the first, and you're going to get yourself a nice wide receiver in the mid to late first. Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet the quarterbacks sneak in above them too, and I bet you're right.
Absolutely, yeah.
Probably in the 107, 109 range, and you'll get a nice little wide receiver.
Yeah, that'd be perfectly fine through one game.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch Scattaboo just because I like his name. And I watched
child. Scattaboo's awesome,
I watched dude that Big 12. I watched the Big 12.
He's not going to test well.
Game.
I just want to.
It does. I don't
everybody for that right now, because I know people, and they're going to be like, "Oh my god, he ran a 4.52." Hey, listen, it doesn't matter. He's good.
He's
that
a
dude can play ball. Yeah, that dude can play ball. That's for sure.
Maybe I don't know if it's just because he's white, but he reminds me a little bit of Peyton Hillis.
I can see that.
Right. It's just like she's just a
real lunch pail guy.
Yeah, just a
that's all the stereotypes for white running backs.
Football guy. That's it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
You guys have?
I can talk all day about these rookies, though. Let's
no, but I think I'm excited. Maybe we'll do some prospect previews starting here soon. I'm excited about some of these rookies. We got plenty of time until April when the draft rolls around. But,
yes, indeed.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back next week. All right. Peace out.
Peace.